Hey everybody, and welcome to my latest video. This is going to be the video review version of my review of The Walking Dead's mid-season premiere squeeze. And wow, that happened. So if you go to fangirlmag.com right now, you can read my written review of the episode. It's not pleasant, and I'm getting a lot of Game of Thrones vibes, and I mentioned that in the review. But boy, man, this episode was just so bad. I can't believe how dark and how boring, and at the same time, just they've managed to start the destruction of some of the best characters of the show. And it all really shows in this episode. Now we knew that Carol was having issues, and you can take that, that's given, that's okay. But with this episode, we're really seeing them just take her down to just a horrible level of just stupidity and her actions and what she's, there's no thought involved. This is a woman that took on an entire city of cannibals, single-handedly saved the entire group herself. She's very methodical, very precise. She's taught herself how to be just a super shot with a gun. And this episode, you really see that they've just destroyed her character, where she's making stupid, rash decisions. That's what led them to this cave. And now, even worse, she's getting dynamite, screwing that up, and breaking down, begging Daryl to hate her. There's just so much bad in this episode that I can't deny anymore that they've just ruined her character. Melissa McBride deserves better than this, and so did the fans, and so does the character of Carol. It just angers me so much that they've just destroyed this character, who it was one of the most amazing arcs of the show, and just amazing, this woman who was an abused wife and lived through the death of her child, the death of her abusive husband, became the strong pillar of the community, and they've just ruined her. And it makes no absolute sense at all of what they've done here. And I can't figure out if it's just due to a this destruction of the character came from there being no real showrunner involved anymore, that no one was keeping an eye on the scripts. With it really hurts me, because Carol is one of the best characters on the show, and her arc was so empowering and so inspiring, and they've just destroyed it. And I speak about that, of course, in my written review, but here I'm going to expand on some things too. Now, in the comics, Carol's character doesn't even make it out of the prison. She dies by suicide in the comic, because, and this is a real thing if you don't know, in the comic, um, Rick and his wife refused to have a threesome with her. Like, they wouldn't let her be a part of a group. And so, despondent, because Rick and Lori kind of threw her to the wayside, she wanders into a group of walkers and lets them eat her. I'm really worried here, because of how this season's going, and it has been going, with what they've done to her character. Now, Ezekiel, who in the comics died during Alpha's in the Whisperer's story arc, with being, he was one of the heads on a pike. Now they kept him alive. They kind of faked you out there, kind of like what they did multiple times in this episode with Jerry. But I'm not even. But anyway, Ezekiel's character he's a great character too. Fantastic character, strong. He overcame what he once was and became a king. He was just a groundskeeper kind of a guy. He was a zookeeper, and he became a king. And he's just this great, majestic character. I love Ezekiel. And what have they done with Ezekiel? They gave him the cancer, and now he's got this giant growth thyroid thing on his neck. Because The Walking Dead has now become misery porn, even more so than it originally was. It wasn't, there was catastrophe and drama and sadness because, I mean, it's the setting. I mean, that kind of has to happen. But at this point, the show is just, I don't, there's no direction in what they're doing at this point. And this episode in particular just really shows that. And also, I'm interested to see just what the budget was for this episode, because again, the Game of Thrones references come fast and furious with this. With this episode, you had, like they did with Game of Thrones in that giant battle, you couldn't see anything. I don't know if it was just me, but by God, this was really dark. They were within this cave thing that for almost the entire episode, and it just felt cheap. It felt like, no bad juju to Doctor Who here, but it felt kind of like a Doctor Who episode where they kept going through the same hallway kind of a thing, and you didn't see anything. And this, just the whole cave deal. And I'm sorry, I love Jerry, but Jerry would know, the way they were filming this and what we were supposed to take from it, Jerry wouldn't have fit anywhere in that area. Sorry. I even take your gear off. No, he would not have fit. But the whole fake outs with Jerry thing was really ridiculous. Hold the door, Jerry, hold the door. But yeah, that whole cave sequence, the entire plot, the stupid decisions by Carol. If anybody is saying this is one of the greatest episodes of The Walking Dead ever, they're insane. It was so bad. And this was the way to make it, that whole, ooh, they're all trapped with like how many walkers. That was the other thing. It seemed like, wow, weren't we supposed to think there was like a gazillion walkers here? And then on top of that, you suddenly had these very video game-esque, well-placed, hoppy, someone needs to take the jump sound effects from like Super Mario Brothers and put on there for Daryl jumping these rocks. What the hell? That was just stupid. That was really stupid. But then you have the whole thing, again, Carol's stupidity, this whole thing with the dynamite, it just was so, that is not Carol, man. That's not Carol. I don't care that she's lost her son, quote unquote. He lost, I lost my son. You've lost a child. You've killed kids. You are allowed to grieve, but it would not do this to her. It would not. That would not break her. We've seen her at her weakest and her most down, and she was not broken. This makes no sense. Again, the writing and the direction, and there's no one at the realm, at the helm of the ship. And what's insane to me is this is where this show is going. There's obviously been budget cuts, and I haven't even gotten to the whole Negan and Alpha thing, which, what the fuck was that? Anyway, we'll get there in just a moment. I have to say though, like I said, this episode really felt cheap in the fact that they had this dark, very, very dark, same looking set that they were going through. And then on top of that, the final image in that whole sequence with Alpha and Negan looked so weirdly CG. I know it was supposed to make you all go, eh, but it looked I was too focused on the weird look of it, that it looked like a CG'd, landscape of some sort. It just felt cheap and looked cheap to me. But let's talk Negan and Alpha. I don't know what's going on with Negan at this point. They did have this whole redemptive arc for him, and now we're supposed to believe that he's helping Alpha, but would he? The whole thing seems like we don't know where. Do we want him to be a dick again? Do we want him to be the hero? Oh, we're going to bring back Rick Grimes, so we've got to make him a bad guy again. Is that what's happening here? Because I can't tell. That's how poorly written it is and weird. I love Jeffrey D. Morgan. That's why that's there. I love Negan. This is just bizarre. And it's bad enough that they took, they're destroying all the characters I love. They're just screwing them over. That they took Negan and literally tossed him into a pile of shit. That happened in this episode. They threatened to cut his balls off and then threw him in a pile of shit. I don't know what to say to that. Yeah, that happened in this episode. They threatened to cut his balls off and threw him in a pile of shit. Empowerment. I don't know. So anyway, that happened. And then, we come to this scene where I guess we're supposed to emasculate Negan in this episode with him thinking that he's going to die via Alpha, and then her basically making him strip down to nothing but his socks because it's business time. It's business socks time, yes, for both of them. That I found funny. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that or if they were just too horrified by what was happening, but they both had their socks on. But the entire emasculation of Negan just was so stupid. First of all, I don't think he would have went for it. I don't think he would have. He. I know he's like a horn dog, but I don't know. That just seemed very out of character for both of them. It isn't just even Alpha. The whole thing with Alpha is that she's almost beyond or sex at this point. She's her own thing. She is the end and the beginning kind of a deal. She's that cray. And for her to suddenly be willing to get it on with Negan just seems odd, doesn't it? Isn't that just weird? Isn't that odd? Isn't that sound like some weird form of they're trying to be empowering to her, but she doesn't need to be. She already is. She's beyond, man. That's the whole thing. Her character's crazy, but she's beyond any of that. And for that to be what happens, and for Negan to go for it, and just, especially if you've read the comics and you know how much he hates her, I don't, and the whole thing with his wife and blah, blah, I just don't see either of that happening. It just was a weird, uncharacteristic, again, kind of a scene. And that's why I'm like, why are you doing this to Negan, who's one of the best characters of the show? Why are you doing this to Carol, who is one of the best characters of the show? None of this makes any sense. None of it. This was just a bad, bizarre, horribly done episode of The Walking Dead. And it really is reminding me of Game of Thrones and how you took a character like Daenerys, who had this amazing arc, came from an abusive relationship with her brother, found herself, became a queen, and then they decided, fuck it, we're going to just make her kill everybody and blow things up. That's exactly what's happening here. They're making Carol lose her mind because her kids died and, she lost her son. And it literally is the Daenerys storm. It's Daenerys's thing. It's the entire, oh God, why? But yeah, that's what's happening here. Game of Thrones is ruining the characters. Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, Freudian slip, is ruining the characters that we came to love because it's either ran out of ideas, they just don't care, they ran out of money, they've stretched themselves too thin. That's literally what happened with Game of Thrones. The showrunners had a little juicy steak of going to work for Star Wars and Disney, and so they rushed everything and didn't care about it to really scope the narrative. And so with Walking Dead now, you've got three, three shows that are going to be going on simultaneously, as well as three, count them three, as far as I know, Rick Grimes movies. So at this point, you have stretched this so thin that the prime show is now rudderless and is now having things happen like what we saw tonight with the caves and Carol just losing her shit and Negan doing things that is no, we decided, you know what, we're going to be woke or something, and we're going to have the big guy here that was the badass. We're just going to threaten to cut his balls off and then throw him in a pile of shit, and then we're going to have him, shown that all he cares about is banging. He's okay with that, even though this piece of trash that is Alpha, no matter how powerful she is, she's still the villain, and she's a bitch, and we don't like her. She, we'll come together. Yeah, business time. So, yeah, that's this episode of Game of Walkers, and I don't like it. I don't know why they've gone this route. I can almost guarantee you what's going to end up happening before the season's over with Carol and Ezekiel. You're going to have Ezekiel die in front of her, and it won't, he'll be like, it's, whatever, because I got the big lump of plot cancer, and she'll see that, and that'll throw her over the edge, and she'll kill herself. Suicide by Walker. She'll like fall into the horde and do a T1000 or T2, T800 and blow them up herself or some shit. It's going to be a suicide type of a thing. Carol's going to do it. It's what we're leading up to, guys. So say goodbye to one of the toughest, most amazing female characters ever, because they're slowly killing her. And then you're going to get probably a death at the end of this season. And that's going to be the big die, because she's one of the last remaining, like, if not, they'll never kill Daryl, because AMC owns him. That character is unique to the show. They won't let that go. Hey, howdy, Zinni. They won't let that go. That's money. But Carol is like one of the last original first season people left, other than Daryl, and they will kill her. That's going to happen. She's one of the last Frank Darabont people that's in the show. And yeah. Yep. The other thing I wanted to point out really quickly, though, too, is Magda and Connie, who are buried in the well that Carol blew them up in. They had to free her up. It's kind of funny how Marvel is picking at the corpse of the Walking Dead, no pun intended. With like Michonne is leaving Denai Guerrera because of, she's now all about the Black Panther movies. And God, you go, girl, get out of there. But the actress who plays Connie is now going to be in the Eternals, so we had to write her out so she could go film that. That's what happened there. So, yeah, it's kind of funny how they're picking out of here. So just be aware of that. But yeah, that's all I have to say about The Walking Dead tonight. I'll be back next week for whatever is to come of next week's episode. I do this for you. I watch this for you. It's time. Okay, Zinni is asking me a question. Do I agree that it's time to panic about The Walking Dead in terms of people dying on the show, or just the fact that the show has just gone to this point where it's not good anymore, that it's basically misery porn. It used to be slightly misery porn because, I mean, that's the granted, that's the where you're at. Oh, so where people are going to die? Be specific. Um, the thing with this show is that it's always been kind of a misery porn type of thing. You know, it's an apocalyptic zombie filled landscape. People are going to die. That's just what happens. Now it's gotten to the point where the people that are, they're really taking that whole "we are the Walking Dead" thing to heart, because they're really torturing all of these people and just they're killing people for no reason, just stupid things like shock value. And what's funny is there's so much of a cast now. There's such a glut of characters because they just keep adding characters. Originally, you had a set amount, you had a fixed amount. There weren't a lot of them, and you cared more because you were allowed to have more time per character to build them up. For example, let's talk about this guy right here. This is Shane. I love Shane. I love Shane so much. I got 2 of these, one with hair and one without. This one's actually signed by him. Shane was a fantastic character. I loved John Bernthal. I still love John Bernthal. The thing with Shane was he was allowed to be complex, and he was allowed to grow before he was killed off. Okay, EW wrote The Walking Dead is back after its mid-season break, and the 9th episode of season 10 Squeeze was quite a dark episode. That's meant literally. Yes, like I said, this whole episode was so black and dark, you can't see anything. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was dark. Thank you. I'm glad that Entertainment Weekly can agree with me on something, because I'm not a fan of Entertainment Weekly that much. But apparently they think the same thing as I do about Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead. But I was going back to this guy. So the reason Shane was such a great character and you really cared about him, and not only just because John Bernthal is a fantastic effing actor, is the fact that they, back at that time, even when they went to Herschel's farm, you had time enough. You didn't have as many characters as you do now, and you had time enough to grow with them and learn them and care. There's so many now that they don't have enough time in the episodes because they're selling this episode was 43 minutes long, and then because they have to have like at least 15 minutes of commercial breaks. But in that 43 minutes was just all of this crap in the cave, and there was no real character development there other than Carol's character being killed slowly by whatever the writers are doing to her. And I just don't give a shit. Pardon the language. I just didn't care. And that's the same thing that happened with Sadiq the first part of the season. They killed him off. I didn't give a shit because we had no time with him to care about him. They keep doing those stupid time jumps. No one cared about Sadiq. At least I didn't, because I barely knew him. And he's the reason Carl died. Carl, who had been there from the beginning and we had seen grow and get older and grow up on camera, killed off because we decided we wanted to go a different take or some shit. And left his friend George. It's always about the Rick Grimes story. See, and that's the thing is, there was never any doubt that Rick Grimes was going to die either. He wasn't going to die. That whole big thing, we knew they weren't going to kill Rick Grimes. But anyway, the part of the problem is they've got this show filled with characters that no one cares about because we don't have time to care about them. We don't get any time with them to care about them. And that's crap. That's why we cared so much about Glenn dying, because we had been with him since the first season, from the beginning. that's why, even Abraham, we had him for a while, and then they just rando killed him off for no reason. That's the thing. They don't give us enough time to care about these characters. So it's like, I didn't even know. I forgot her name was Magda. I don't know. We barely had time with you, girl. I don't know you. Um, the same with Connie. I mean, we've had a little bit more time with her because of Daryl, but still, it's like, I don't really, I don't even know your last name. I. So it's like the show has, I don't know. I honestly, what has happened with this show is they had a showrunner who didn't know what they were doing. They got a new showrunner who's kind of been thrown into this for whatever, she's been thrown into it. And it's just a rudderless ship at this point. There's no, yeah, Angela Kang. And Angela Kang has not really taken the reins on this. I mean, this season's been horrible. Horrible season. And what sucks is this show, right now, you're at some core cool shit in the comic books that they could be doing with the Whisperers. And there's none of that happening. It's really sad. So, like I said, this season has just been horrible, and it's the 10th season. It should be like something special, and it's not. It's becoming its own this horrible, just badly written pace thing. And the other part of it too, I think as well, is I love Greg Nicotero. Greg Nicotero killed himself making this show. And in the interim of season 9 to this one, Greg's gone off to make Creepshow, which he is doing fantastic with. And if you want to watch something great and see some of his work and his directing and his show running talent, because he never was an actual showrunner with The Walking Dead, but he might as well have been. He did all he could do. And that is on Shudder. If you go look at, go watch Creepshow season 1, and you will see some amazing stuff and amazing guest stars. So yeah, that's my thoughts on The Walking Dead season 10 mid-season premiere. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Do you think it's time to use what? The C word. Oh, they're not going to cancel I hope that's the C word he's talking about. They're not going to cancel The Walking Dead. They're too invested at this point. AMC is triple down with Walking Dead. There's 3 shows: Fear the Walking Dead, the Fear the Walking Dead, the Kids of the Walking Dead, the World Outside, or whatever the hell it's called. I don't know. Tween Walking Dead, and this one. And now they've got 3 Rick Grimes movies that are going to be at the theater. Those are feature films at the movie theater that they're doing. So no, they're not going to cancel The Walking Dead. The AMC is way too invested in it now. And it's kind of ridiculous because The Walking Dead was at the height of its power about 3 or 4 seasons ago. That's when they should have been doing all of this. But instead, they just kind of let it go and coast, and were nitpicky about, money and things like that. And now they're so invested in it. And and now it's on the way kind of down. And I don't understand that. That's some bad planning. So yeah, anyway, that's it. I'm cutting this off now. We're almost at the 30-minute mark, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk. But yeah, so I will be back next week. And thank you guys. Send some love to James Gunn, because I'll just add this. James Gunn, his puppy that was in Guardians of the Galaxies had him in like a bunch of his work, and you've seen pictures of him with them. Von Spears passed away. He announced on social media a few days ago, and they actually halted filming of Suicide Squad for him to go be with his dog while when he was passing, and that's amazing. That is amazing. So send some love to James Gunn. He deserves it, and send some love to Von Spears because that is a sweetheart. So thank you guys. Even Michael Rooker, well, we'll kind of tie this back together. Michael Rooker was posting pictures of him in Yondu makeup with Von Spears on the set of Guardians, kissing him in his little blue face. So I cried a lot when I found out about that. So anyway, man, thank you guys. Thank you, Zenny. And I'll see you next week on another Walking Dead video. I do this for you. I do this for you, guys. Bye.